across all time zones, covering both hemispheres. It's time for another installment of Authors First on the Artist First Radio Network. We've been doing this Authors First program for over 25 years. And you'd think we'd be a little bit better at it than we are by now, but folks, we try. And we bring you the best new books you need to read from the best new authors you haven't heard of yet. Tonight's broadcast is with a member of the Artist First family. Our guest has a program on Wednesday evenings. I think it's the fourth week of the month. He's a very interesting man, and I'm privileged to be interviewing him this evening. He's an author of three books that we're going to be talking about this evening. But as I like to do when I host the Authors First show, I like to introduce the guest because many of you are not going to know who he is. Some of you will for sure. But for those that don't know our guest, first of all, let me welcome Dr. Andre Jerry. Hey, Dr. Andre.
Hey, Z. Thank you so much for having me on this evening.
Our pleasure. Thanks for being a member of our radio family.
Hey, I'm blessed to be a member.
As we traditionally do with many people that'll be hearing about you for the first time, let's talk about you as a human being. I like to say you were born, then what happened?
Oh, man. I was born into a great family. Came from a two-parent household. I had two great parents, Robert Jerry, Pearline Jerry. I couldn't ask for two better parents, Z. I mean, they nurtured me, and, they had me later in life. My mom was, I think, about 35 when she had me, and my dad was at the ripe old age of 51 when he had me. So I was his first boy. I was her first boy, and I was just spoiled completely rotten.
That's what
just a brat. But I had a great life and a great upbringing. I have wonderful sisters, wonderful cousins, wonderful family. So I come from a big family on both sides and just grew up with a lot of love. So I'm just blessed to be here.
Where did you grow up?
In Columbus, Georgia. Columbus, Georgia is right next to the largest military installation in the world, Fort Benning, now known as Fort Moore. So that's where I grew up and entered this world.
Now, being that you're very talented in several areas, before we get into your professional career, you're a music producer, and are you a musician?
Yes, I am. I dabble in music. I've always loved music, but I consider myself an EDM artist. For anyone that doesn't know what EDM means, it's electronic dance music, which is one of my favorite genres of music. And so I've been kind of dibbling in and out of producing and writing and singing music in that genre for the past 2.5, maybe 3 years. And it's a hobby of mine. It's something I love. It's something I enjoy. And I got a few songs out there. Some have done pretty well. Even been played on the radio stations over in Saudi Arabia. So I've been blessed with my music career, my little bitty music career, I say.
We play a couple of your tunes. You're pretty good at it. I've been a music producer a long time, and it takes some skills, and you're very good at it. When did you get started with that?
Oh, man, I think I started over in Saudi. I had to figure out something to do, Z. I was away from my friends, away from my family, and I had a lot of downtime. Was very busy in my work and, had a lot of stuff that I had to get done, but there also was a lot of downtime there. And so I had to find something to fill that space that I normally would spend with family and friends and hanging out and doing things and going on trips. And so I kind of threw myself into music and started experimenting with different beats and different music concepts and things and concepts for songs. And so I just started to play around with it. Some of it sounded great, some of it not so great, but I just kind of did it and I threw it out there and I let people gravitate to what they thought was cool.
Let's check out. I got a little snippet here. Check it out.
I'm going back to Saudi. I'm going back to Saudi. Saudi. I'm going back to Saudi. I'm going back to Saudi. It's like my second home. The Arabs are exotic. I can't leave them alone. They like the taste of chocolate. Sexy, erotic.
Definitely dance music. I can, as a professional musician, spent thousands of nights working in nightclubs, and that would work. That would absolutely work in any nightclub I ever played in. Well, there you go. You have musical skills. You're the author of 3 books. You're a radio show host. You have talent. Are there others in your family that are also gifted artistically?
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of gifted people in my family, a lot of varying gifts in music and writing and all types of things. I come from a very talented family. A lot of the talent is hidden, though. You know, it takes a lot of guts for people to get out there and showcase their talent, to put out into the world to be judged and ripped apart or liked or loved or whatever. But, yeah, I just always wanted to just put it all out there. I'm a multifaceted individual. God's blessed me with a lot of different interests and talents, and so I want to explore all of that while I'm here. I don't know how long I'll be here. I've been blessed to see 45 years so far, but I don't know if it's 70, 80, 90, but while I'm here, I want to explore every little piece of intrigue that he's put in my spirit. And so that's what I'm here to do, and that's how it's going to be.
Well, reading up about you before the program tonight, you're listed as here's a list, ladies and gentlemen: a diplomat, a scholar, a logistician, I hope I said that right, a radio show host, and a successful author. I'm sure there's a few more on there. Okay, what did you do as a diplomat?
Well, as a diplomat, I had 2 diplomatic tours in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so let's just go ahead and throw out there. I'm what you would call a job hopper, or what I refer to as a job whore. So since joining the Federal Civil Service in 2025, not 2025, God, I've had too much wine. I joined the Federal Civil Service in 2015. And since then, I've kind of gone back and forth between civilian and contractor. But I've done 2 diplomatic tours. The first one was as a special liaison with the F-15 program. The second time was as the chief of logistics for the Saudi AWACS program. Now, both of those tours were pretty rigorous and challenging, but it was a tremendous learning opportunity and definitely springboards for my career advancement. So I always knew going into Federal Civil Service that I wanted to explore, being a deployed citizen and having a diplomatic tour in various places. I didn't necessarily know it would be Saudi Arabia, but I knew going in that I wanted to have that international experience because my undergraduate degrees and doctorate degrees were in international business administration. So I always knew I wanted to go after that type of work.
Very few people get to spend time in Saudi Arabia. What was that like?
It's not the scary place that a lot of people think, it is. When I first told people I was going on a tour, it was like, oh, well, you can't do anything, and they can't do this, and they can't do that, and certainly is a lot more strict than the freedoms that we enjoy here in the States. But let me tell you something, Z, I never felt more safe or more secure as I did when I lived in Saudi. When I first went to Saudi, it was right during the beginning phases of COVID-19. And I just felt secure. You know, you didn't have people over there questioning whether or not a mask was, the appropriate response. It was, hey, look, there's a pandemic going on. You need to wear your mask. There was no questions about it. There was no anything. You wore your mask. And, I could jog and venture out in Saudi and not worry about whether I was going to get shot while I was jogging around the neighborhood. I felt very safe there. They have a good control of the population in terms of arms and just different things that we have to worry about here stateside. So I was happy over there and would happily do a third tour over in Saudi if I was asked. So I always tell people, it's a lot more controlled, but you have a lot more liberties and access to things that you would otherwise think you wouldn't have.
And were the people friendly? I mean, Americans are not looked upon all that well around the world. Now, some places they are, but how were you treated?
For the most part, if they know you're connected with the federal government, then of course, you're going to get a heightened level of treatment in terms of politeness and just general conversation. There is a segment there that kind of has this attitude towards Americans that we're, basically spoiled brats. But once people realize that you're a liaison, you're linked with the federal government, you're here in a professional capacity, the treatment is a lot different. And I've always found the Saudi residents and population to be quite welcoming. I've ventured out to various restaurants and different venues. Everyone has been welcoming. Now, I don't know who's going to be unwelcoming to someone that's being escorted by armed soldiers for their protection, but I can't say that I was mistreated or slighted in any way.
Are you saying you were escorted by armed soldiers?
Yes. We were free to venture out to the malls and different things of that nature, but we always had an escort just for our protection, particularly if we were a liaison. Because liaisons have direct communication with attachés and different higher-ranking Saudi officials, and there's a fear or perception there that we may be intercepted or approached or bribed or something like that. So and just for our own safety and just for the safety of the information that we were protecting and just on the behalf of the government's safety, we always had armed guards or soldiers that accompanied us, not in an intimidating way. They were always kind of off, but we never had to fear being kidnapped or anything like that because of that security presence that we had during that time.
I think that'd be kind of cool, man. You go out to the club and you walk through, and then you got a bunch of guys with guns making sure nobody messes with you.
Yeah, man, I got my entourage. Don't mess with me, man. I'm rolling deep here.
Yeah. I don't know. I could get used to that. I've had attempts on my life. Okay, most of those were my girlfriends, but anyway, another story. You are an interesting guy, and you have had a lot of interesting experiences, and 45 ain't that old, man. Trust me, it's not.
Hey, I still feel like a young, spry man, so hey.
Well, we're going to talk about your 3 books here for the next segments of the program. Folks, first of all of these books can be found on Dr. Andre Jerry's radio show page on Artist First. Go to Artist First and click on Dr. Andre Jerry. The books are there, the links are there, and you can get right to them. Okay, was How to Date a Married Man, was that your first book?
No, God, no. My first book was actually Write or Die. How to Date a Married Man was my second book, and my most controversial, I would say.
Yeah, I thought I got a lot of hate mail. I bet you get a few letters now and then on that one.
Actually not. I think people are pleasantly surprised when they actually read the book. I did get a few comments across social media about, oh, I can't believe you would write something like this. Or, a lot of people are confused as to what the premise of the book was. But I promise anybody that if you read it, you'll be pleasantly surprised with how everything is laid out.
So what motivated you to write that book?
Well, first of all, I was in that situation where I was dating a married man. A lot of people who's listening right now would be shocked because I really don't talk about my personal life in that aspect. But it was a part of my personal experience. And really, there's a right way to do wrong. If you're going to be dating somebody's husband or wife or whatever, that's really a dangerous game to play. A lot of people can get hurt, probably will get hurt playing that game. So if you're going to get involved in a relationship with that sort of dynamic, you really need to know what you're up against, and you need to know that more often than not is not going to end up well for you. I always say now I mentioned this in the book, it's like it's a game. You're playing a game with people's lives and with your own. And as with any game, there are rules that you should adhere to if you're going to, try to increase the odds in your favor. And so that's really what this book is all about.
I wrote down that line that you said, there's a right way to do wrong.
That's from my mom. She always told us that. She was like, baby, there's a right way to do wrong. And she was absolutely right. If you're going to go down a certain path, it doesn't have to be, dating a married man. It could be a number of things. But if you're going to rob a bank, if you're going to be a criminal, if you're going to be whatever, there's a right way to do wrong. So if you're going to go down a certain path, then do it in the most expeditious way that's going to cost you the least heartache.
Okay. What has the public's... Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, without giving away too much, we want people to read the book, but what is the message you want people to take away from that book?
That's a good question. So, really, I wrote this book for the woman or man who never intended or ever thought they'd be in this type of situation where they were dating a married man. Someone like myself who used to judge or be overly critical about people who were dating or had some type of involvement with a married man or woman. It's easy for us to sit back and judge the situation that, you yourself have never been in. It's easy to cast stones from our little moral porch, but you never know when you may find yourself in certain circumstances, where you're engaging in the very behavior that you used to judge others for. And really, that's the message that my cousin, Angel, she was able to communicate that so eloquently, I thought, in the foreword that she wrote for the book. And so that was my inspiration for writing this. Essentially, I wanted to provide a handbook for women or men who found themselves in this type of relationship dynamic. It was never about advocating for or encouraging dating married men. It was more so, okay, look, now that you're in this type of situation, this is what you need to know if you're going to do this.
Interesting. What's the public's reaction been to the book?
The book has done quite well, actually. I haven't done a lot of marketing for this book. I've moved on to other projects. I just kind of put it out there and let the public do whatever it's going to do with it. But it's been performing really well. I think people who have read the book have changed their perspective on this particular subject. Not saying it's changing anyone's values or anything like that, but it's definitely opening up a different perspective and a different viewpoint. Reading a book that that's written from someone who's been in this situation, and then really, like I said before, if you read the book all the way through, I think you really will be pleasantly surprised at the end at how everything is laid out and the perspective that you gain from reading this. And I encourage married women to read it. Married women who have husbands need to read this book as well, because, you need to know what's going on out there, how you can prevent situations where you're leaving your marriage open to someone else coming in and infiltrating your marriage. So it's not just for people who are in that situation. It's also a good book for wives themselves to read, or even husbands to read. It's a pleasant read for people who would just give it a chance. But yeah, I based on the title, I knew the title would be controversial, and that was intentional, of course.
Yeah.
But there really is a method to the way I wrote this book and the title and everything that is included in it.
I think the title is genius, because people are going to take a look at it. That title, excellent on that. Let's
Absolutely.
step back just a little bit. What age in your life did you realize that writing was something you had an interest in?
Oh, man, early on. I've always pretty much known I've had this gift of writing. I was always shy about communicating my feelings verbally. That's always been a challenge for me. And so I found that early on that it was easier for me to write my feelings, write my emotions. And so I leaned on that a lot when I was an adolescent. And later when I got into the dating age, teenager, I wrote a lot of love poems, a lot of love songs, a lot of love letters. Anyone who I've dated, they have love letters from me. That was my dominant way of communicating that gave me the most comfort, that made me the most comfortable. I may not be able to come to you and say, hey, I really think you're beautiful. I really would like to date you. I think we'd be a great couple. I like this and this and this about you. It was hard for me just to come out and say that, but to write it, I could do it eloquently. And so that's always been something that I leaned on from early on.
Yeah, I used to write love letters to women, and then the police would show up at my house.
Oh, see?
Okay, I made that up. I made that up. I did write a lot of...
It's not for everyone, Z.
I did, when you said that, though, I absolutely used to write lots and lots of love letters to my girlfriends in high school and college. No doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
You brought me back there by you mentioning that. Absolutely. I wonder if they still have any of them. Yeah, I really
Maybe so.
I really doubt that. That would be scary if they did,
Call a few of them and see.
No. I think that ship has already sailed. Folks, if you're just joining us, Dr. Andre Jerry is our guest on Authors First tonight. He is a multi-talented individual. He's also a radio show host on the network. You can find his program on our schedule and listen to the shows yourself. Of course, wait till this one's over. We're discussing the 3 books he has out so far. We're going to move on to book number 2, which was actually written first in these 3 books, and it's called Write or Die, and that's W-R-I-T-E. What inspired you to take this path, and that's very powerful. I think anybody that's an artist totally understands the title of your book. But anyway, please explain how this came about.
Wow. Okay. So this was my first book. It's very near and dear to my heart. The title is just self-explanatory. It's write or die. It's either I wrote all this stuff down, I got all this stuff out, or I died. And whether that was a physical death or the death of just my life as I knew it, as a productive person, as a person that's going to be inspiring others, and all the stuff that the Lord had in store for me, all of that was going to die if I didn't write this book. I knew I had to write this book when I was so broken and devastated and hurt and heartbroken that I almost drove to Atlanta to fuck my ex up, and excuse my language. But we were together for almost 14 years. We were basically family at that point. We had been together since we were in our late 20s, and we experienced a lot during our time together. And I had a really hard time when we broke up. It, even with everything we went through, it just went south in a really bad way that kind of caught me off guard. You know, he hit me right where it hurt. When you've been with someone that long, they know all of your pressure points. He hit me right where it hurt. And it took everything in me not to fuck him up. And there's a lot more to this story, and maybe one day I'll share it, you know, on my show or in a book or something like that. But I remember one day when I was feeling really like in a bad way. I remember it. I was seething with just pure rage about something really nasty that my ex did to hurt me. Or at least that's how I processed it at the time in my broken state of mind. But no one really knew how I was feeling. You know, I can be really convincing and really an actor when I want to be. So I was playing everything cool. You know, my family was over at my house. Everybody was eating and talking normal. And I had already made up in my mind that I was going to drive to Atlanta and really physically hurt my ex. It was already done in my mind. So while everyone was eating and, you know, talking, laughing, whatever, I calmly walked over and got my car keys off the counter, and I went to walk out of the door. No one knew that I was on my way to Atlanta. We had nothing but evil intent in my heart. But before I could make it out the door, my brother-in-law gently grabbed my arm, and he told me, he looked me right in my eye. He said, "Bro, I don't know where you're going or who you are about to see, but whatever you're planning to do, it ain't worth it." He looked me dead in my eyes when he said it, and I knew it was God. He said, "The blood will be required at thine hand." He said, "You need to write." And that's all he said. He didn't preach at me. He didn't give a long thing like he did, but somehow God allowed me to get the message, to hear it, to be humble and just to listen. And I thank God for him to this day, because if my brother had not stopped me, I have no doubt that I would be either right now in prison or dead. So from that day on, I started to write, and I did not stop writing until that book was finished. And that's why I named the book what I named it. That's why I named it Write or Die, Expressions of Life, Love, and Loss, because that book is literally and figuratively my blood, sweat, and tears. It's a masterpiece. And, you know, I could write 1,000 books, Z, but there would never be another that could compare to it. It was my first book.
That's a hell of a story. I thought maybe you were going to say when your brother-in-law came over and confronted you and said, I don't know where you're going, but here, take my gun.
No. He saw something in my eyes. He had to, because I know I was playing it cool. I know how much of an actor I can be. I knew I was playing it cool, but he saw something in my eyes that he recognized from when he was in a similar state, and he just saw it, and he just kind of stopped me right in my tracks. And like I said, it wasn't a long speech or anything like that, but it was very subtle. And I'm just glad that God gave me the humility to see it and to just listen to him. Because normally once I get an idea in my head, I'm going to do what's in my head. I'm going to do it. There's nothing you can say. But I was able to be humble and listen and just change my course. And, I'm just glad I did. But that is the premise behind that book. And so instead of all of that rage, all of the stuff I was feeling, I poured all of that into my poetry. And so that's why that book is incomparable. It never will be another book like that again. I don't care how many I write.
So how has the public received that book?
Oh, everybody that reads that book, it's funny you mention it. Everybody that reads that book always contacts me and tells me, I feel like you wrote this for me. I feel like I connect with this poem. This poem tells my story. I didn't know it would resonate with so many of the poems are so personal in nature that you didn't think that you were, when you were writing it, that, someone else will connect with this. It was so personal. So when person after person comes back to me and say, hey, I see myself in this story, or this is my story right here. It's like, I know that's God. I know why there was such a strong spirit for me to just continue writing that book and to get that work out there to the masses. So I'm glad that I pushed through it, and it was some difficult days, but I pushed through and I got it out there, and it's been well received. I'm blessed.
Yeah, I think a whole bunch of listeners know exactly what you're talking about. The pain, a broken heart. Oh, it's just no, it's serious. And so, many times it's lifelong. And we should never diminish, never look down upon people that are in that state of mind. Too many bad things happen when people can't get out of that state of mind, and it's real. It's very real.
Very.
Yeah, I mean, my friends, I made my closest friends sign a legally binding document that says if they ever catch me taking up with another woman, they're obligated to shoot me. I've been down that road one too many times, and I finally said, I can't take this anymore. I'm just not going to do that kind of stuff anymore. Anyway, no one cares. Okay, that's a hell of a reason to write that book, and I hope it did you as much good as you're implying that it did. I mean, you are here. You're a free man. You're not a convicted felon.
It was completely cathartic. It was quite the accomplishment. I put it right up there with my doctorate in terms of accomplishments. I definitely need to get that out there to the world, and I'm better for it, and I'm just happy with how well received it's been since it's been out there.
Okay, let's move on to book number 3, Unlocking Your Best Life. You are an individual, and folks, you can look, especially if you go back and look at Dr. Andre's radio shows, many of his programs are shows on how to make you a better person. What a wonderful thing. Unlocking your best life. So what was happening in your world when this book came into being?
Well, if you remember, last year I did a show with the same title. The name of the show was Unlocking Your Best Life, 10 Power Moves You Can Make Today. It was because I had an amazing year, Z. 2024 was one of the most productive, positive, fruitful years I ever had. And I wanted others to experience the type of rapid growth and the sense of fulfillment that I had going into this new year, 2025. So I thought about all the things I was doing, the change in habits, the removing distractions, negative influences, and negative people, all the different things. And I compiled a list of 10 actionable, relatively easy moves that people could implement like right now that would drastically and radically improve their lives. So that's what I did my show on. And it was an amazing show. I got a lot of great feedback from it. And someone made the comment to me after the show that they were like, that show should be a book. And that planted a seed in my head. I was like, you know what? You're right. I think I can make that happen. So that's how the book started. I just basically, took those 10 actionable points from the book, and I just kind of expanded it into book form and just put it out there. And I really want people to take special notice of this book because the stuff that's in that book is just not random stuff that I found on the internet. It's really actionable, simple things that I did in my own personal life that got me to, my greatest and most productive year that I've had, and I don't know how long. And so I want to pay that forward to other people. So I felt compelled to put this in a book form so that it could be accessible to more people, because not everybody is, we want to think everybody in the world is going to listen to our show, but that's not the case. So I wanted to put it out there just to kind of further the impact of what we talked about during that show.
And then it's all downhill from there, Dr. Jerry. I remember the best year. No, of course not. You're a very talented, intelligent, motivated man. And the fact that what you did was unfortunately unusual for a lot of people. Now, what am I talking about? The fact that you were able to sit down and look at where you were in life, make an honest assessment of what's going on, and deliberately try to make improvements. How many people sitting out there just go, screw that, and they just kind of schlep through life and let what happened to them happen to them. They never take the time to sit down and try to figure it out, try to implement things that will make them better. I think that's commendable, and I think the fact that you try to help others is additionally commendable. You're a good guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But, Z, the older I get, it's like, well, what are you here for? I mean, I used to have all the superficial goals of, I want to own 10 rental properties that's bringing in this amount of money and not. Yeah, and to some extent, you know, those goals are important too. But the older I'm getting, Z, the more I'm realizing, like, how are you using your life and your blessings and all the things that you've gleaned over the years? How are you leveraging that to be in service to other people? Like, you're not just here to be just grandeur for the sake of being grandeur. Like, what are you doing to pour into the lives of other people so that they can take a little bit of the blessings and the lessons that you've learned and apply it to their life to get to the next level? Don't just brag about, I got to this level. I'm at this level now. You should be like me. No, help the people. Show them, this worked for me. This didn't work for me. Share. This is a community. We're here to be in service to our fellow humans. That's what I'm learning and I'm appreciating more as I get older and older. It's like all this superficial crap that I thought I wanted, all these different little houses and rental properties and all of this, and I want to make this money and I want to be, okay, that's fine, but what are you doing to help other people? So that's why I do this. That's why I wrote this latest book. Yeah, it's good that I had a great 2024, but not everybody did. Some people struggled through 2024. Some people need help trying to get to that next level. So use a little bit of what you learn and share it with them. Yeah, it may cost $13.99 or $14.99 in a book or whatever, but you spend that on a wig or whatever, you got it. You're going to have to invest in yourself too now. Nobody's going to be giving you stuff for free, but spend a little money on yourself and put things out there in the world that's going to help other people. So that's what I'm all about now. I'm still going to get the little properties and all the stuff I want, but I'm also going to take what I learned and give that to other people and just help as many people as I can get to the next level. Because if I'm not doing that, then all this other stuff is just, it don't feel right to me. It's like, okay, you get, but what are you giving back? So that's what I'm realizing the older I get, Z.
Do you consider yourself a spiritual person?
The older I get, yes. Earlier in my life, I would say more religious because I grew up Jehovah's Witness. And if a gun is held to my head and I'm asked what religion you identify with, I'm going to say Jehovah's Witness. But the older I get, I'm becoming more spiritual, and I'm learning that there's a lot out there that we don't know. I don't subscribe to the thought that, how do I put this? I don't know how to put it, but I think there's a lot out that we're not taught and that we don't know. I'm never going to deny Jehovah. That's the God that I grew up knowing. That's the God that I know and I love and that I've worshiped for 45 years. So that's not going anywhere. But in terms of what happens after we transition from this life, that's a big unknown. I think there's interpretations in the Bible, the Word of God, that we don't quite fully understand, that we're starting to learn and get a better grasp of. So I told you, we've had a conversation before. I'm learning and exposing myself more to these NDE, these near-death experiences where people have these just really intense, I don't know what to call it, experiences that, they have when they have transitioned, they have got to see the other side and transition to the other side for a certain amount of time. And, some of them come back and they share what they've learned. And a lot of what they come back with is really, I would say, something that we should take a look at. It's something that we don't quite know enough about, and I think it's something that we need to take more of a look at. I think there's more there than what we've been taught traditionally in religious thoughts of school and things of that nature. I think the Bible is the Bible, and it has its place, but I do think that we've been misled in a lot of areas in terms of what happens to us after we transition from this world. So that's a whole nother topic. I'm not trying to get on that, but I'm just saying that's something that I'm exploring, but I'm never going to deny the God that I grew up and know, Jehovah. So what's the next question?
Why did we name it near-death experience? It should have been called You Died for a While.
You died for a while, and here's the thing, Z, no one knows what happens after we die. No one really knows. The only account that we really have are these people have had these extraordinary experiences where they have been detached from their physical life and have experienced something else. For whatever reason, they have had the opportunity to come back, and the message that they all have is all the same. There's no death. There's no judgment. God is love. They all come back with a message that's inspiring, that's hopeful, that makes me feel good in my spirit. That lets me know it's not anything of the devil. It doesn't feel like confusion. It doesn't feel like chaos. So I'm able to gravitate towards that. So, it's just more out there than what we have been taught.
I respectfully disagree with the statement that we do not know what happens after we die. I think I know exactly what happens. I think there's a giant amount of information now that people can look at and make up their own minds. But and here's another one, folks. There was a philosopher named Descartes way back in the days, and he made the statement, "I think, therefore I am," and that was one famous line, that sort of focused the idea that a thinking person's alive, that you exist. So I like to take that to the next level. If you die and no longer exist, you're not going to be able to ponder that fact because you don't exist anymore. So if you're blown to smithereens, if your atoms are scattered all over the atmosphere, you're not going to be able to go, "Hey, look at me, I'm a bunch of atoms." No, because you will have ceased to exist. Therefore, don't you always exist? Because if you cease to exist, you'll never know about it anyway. Okay, write that down. That is going to be on the test tomorrow. I gave you a little hint there.
Z, tell the people about your show really quick, the show that talks about this type of stuff. Just tell them real quick what that show is.
The Project Your Answer program is, I think we'll be doing episode 690 tomorrow night, I believe. I guess people, in this particular day and age, this program is being aired live and recorded on February 10th, 2025. In the last 12 months, the amount of information coming out from our government, our military, our allies, governments, and militaries is we are not alone. They've known about alien life on this planet since the late 1940s. And if you come to grips with that, then, oh boy, does that have a bunch of questions that pop into your... What do you mean? How many? Where are they coming from? Do they worship the same God that we do? Are they religious? Are they? How long do they live? How on and on and on. A whole mind-expanding revelation comes forward. And, we're in our infancy, just starting to look into things like that. I believe our ancestors knew all about aliens. If you look at the Egyptians, if you look at the Sumerians, if you look at the Anunnaki, and the Incas, and the Mayans, all the way down the line, they all talk about teachers who came from outer space. Ooh, outer space. Yeah, were they little green men? Yes, some of them were, actually. Anyway, our society, humanity, is becoming aware and having to face the facts that some of the traditional religious dogma is wrong. It's wrong. And that's going to be a really tough pill for a lot of people to swallow because, dogma is dogma. Anyhow, we could show number 690 is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All the programs are there for your enjoyment. We could talk about this for like ever. So I want to change. We got about 7 minutes left. So let's move on to a slightly different topic.
Okay.
Let's talk about your radio show, because hopefully we're going to recruit some people to check out your radio show. Give us a little background on what you're trying to do with the show.
Okay, so thanks for bringing that up. So Live with Dr. Andre Jerry, that's definitely the place to be. That's what I would call a monthly appointment. It's a talk show that touches on a range of different topics and genres. Early on, we had a lot of guests come on the show from various backgrounds. We've had, inventors, entrepreneurs, business people. We've had thought leaders and executive coaches and educators. We've had actresses, and, we just had Renata Morgan, or Renata Jordan now. who appeared in the Tyler Perry's new movie, The 6888. So we've had a broad swath of people that's been well received, and it's allowed me to share my platform with, others and promote their different businesses and books and projects. So that in itself is a blessing. But in the past year, I've sort of gravitated toward more of a monologue format, which I have to admit I quite enjoy it. It allows for more of a intimate connection with my audience and for a chance for my audience to get to know me more on an intimate level. I had a guest speaker about 2 years ago, Freddie Valois. He's a comedian out of Yonkers, New York, and I absolutely love his style and approach to comedy. I enjoy his delivery. He guest hosted one of my episodes when I was traveling from Saudi Arabia back to the States. And I gave him full creative control to approach the episode however he wanted, if he wanted to bring a guest, if he wanted to just whatever. And he chose to do a 1-hour monologue. And I listened to the playback. It was actually pretty good. I thought he did an excellent job, not only in adapting to different environment, in different format, but holding his own for a full hour with no guests, no co-host to bounce off of. It was just pure comedic talent. And so I started incorporating that in my shows. And I got really great feedback from, the shows that I did where I was just doing a monologue. So I kept going with it. And it's become sort of my signature style and my approach to Live with Dr. Andre. So I'm going to stick with it. There'll still be some guests here and there. But for the most part, Live with Dr. Andre has become sort of an intimate hour of me speaking directly to my listeners. And so I just love that.
It's an interesting job, isn't it? Most people never get a chance to do that. This whole radio.
It's true. And it's something about the spontaneity about being live and that pressure to perform and not be able to edit or rehearse. I just kind of love the stress of doing a live show. It scares the hell out of me, but, in a live show, you have no other option but to perform. You can't let your nerves get to you. You can't let whatever get to you. You just have to perform. There's a live audience on the other end listening to what you have to say. So you just have to be on point.
That's true. There's only one shot. You can't take it back once you say it, and the listeners hear it.
That's right.
It's out there. Well, we have about 4 minutes left. What have we not talked about, mentioned on the program that you'd still like to bring up?
Well, on the other topic we were talking about before with the religious stuff, I do want to say this for my audience, okay? I want to say study and show thyself approved. There are a lot of varying different thoughts, schools of thought out there in terms of God and religion and all this type of stuff. The Bible itself says that the Babylon the Great is going to fall. Of course, if you study the Bible, you know that Babylon the Great is the empire of false religion. That's going to crumble and fall. So do expose yourself to different forms of information out there, but don't be a fool, okay? Know what resonates with your spirit. Know what resonates with, if you feel in any way confusion or chaotic, just know that that's the devil. If it feels true, if it feels real to you, if it resonates with your spirit, then that lets you know that it's coming from a place where you may want to be able to trust it. But anytime you feel any type of confusion or chaos, we already know the devil authors that. I already know the school of thought of the devil don't exist and all of that. Jesus and God would look. They'll handle all of that for us. I don't know all the answers. I know that what we have been taught over the years, some of it is not up to par. Some of it has been for selfish reasons, for reasons of controlling the population and all that type of stuff. But just be open to different schools of thought. But don't be a fool either, and just follow your spirit. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I trust Jehovah, and, that's the God that I follow. But I am open to listening to other things that talk about what happens to us after we transition. I don't feel like we've been told the full truth of our inner being and what happens to our spirit once we transition. So just don't be a fool. Study, follow your own spirit, and that's all I got to say. My show comes on every fourth Wednesday of every month, okay, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss it. It's an appointment. It's a vibe. You're going to have fun. You don't know what version of me you're going to get. You may get scholarly Andre. You may get, comedic Andre. You may get just Dre, who is completely ghetto. So you just never know. So just tune in and enjoy whatever version of me that shows up that day. Over to you, Z.
What a great segue to wrap the broadcast. We're right at the top of the hour. Our guest on Authors First this episode, Dr. Andre Jerry. He's also a show host, as he was describing. Join us on that show the fourth Wednesday at, is it 8 or 9? 9. It's 9 o'clock. Yeah.
8.
It's 8? I'm sorry, we got 30.
I'm not staying up to 9 now. If the show starts at 9, I'm going to have to change my contract.
No.
Show it from 8 to 9.
Thank you. We've got 34 shows on the network. I get confused a little bit about the time, so it's right there.
I'm messing with you, Z.
Oh, no. My brain is not what it used to was. Folks, I've enjoyed this conversation, and I'd like to do it again. It's been fun talking to you. You're a fascinating, interesting man.
Anytime. Invite me back soon. I'll come.
I think I have a stinking suspicion you're going to get an invitation from Ankit Shukla and be on his program.
Okay, let's do it.
Live Better Daily. That's coming up. All right, we're out of time. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Dr. Andre, be well. See you in a couple of weeks. And listeners, we'll see you next time in the next installment of Authors First on the Artist First Radio Network.
I'm going back to Saudi, just in the nick of time. I'll party with the Saudis at the end of Ramadan. And when they on that shisha, it's nice to meet ya. So let's go do our thing while we sip Saudi champagne. I'm going back to Saudi, Saudi, Saudi. I'm going back to Saudi.
Baby, don't be naughty.